My friend suddenly included his girlfriend in our holiday vacation and wanted me to pay for her accommodation. So I ruined their vacation and cancelled everything. My friend and I booked to go to an island we'd both been keen to go to. We booked a 2-bed cabin, and because of the popularity of the place we had to book and pay 10 months in advance. We split to cost 50-50. 2 months before we are due to go, he meets someone and they commence dating. The holiday came up, and understandably she was a bit uncomfortable with him coming with me. I was given an ultimatum: either she comes or the entire holiday is called off. I didn't say yes immediately, because I needed to check with the accommodation as the island has a limited number of guests allowed and I needed the okay from them first. My hesitation wasn't taken well, they thought I wasn't keen. I got back to them within 24 hours and said I'd gotten the all clear for his girlfriend to also come and she could book plane tickets for her. A week later he informed me she had the tickets, and I asked him we could discuss rebalancing the accommodation costs now that there were 3 of us coming, as it should now be a 3-way split. I was surprised that he responded with anger. As far as he was concerned, the accommodation was paid for and it was wrong and greedy of me to expect money from his girlfriend. He told me that he was paying for the entire holiday for his girlfriend, so it was still going to be just him and me paying, so it was unfair of me to not pay for half. I told him that there were 3 adults, 3 people, a way split. If he chose to pay for his girlfriend's third, that was his choice and nothing to do with me. He told me his girlfriend was going to buy me a cocktail to say thank you for the accommodation, but if I was going to insist on a split then I could forget it and buy my own damn cocktails, as he couldn't believe I was being so selfish. The thing is, a cocktail is $15, and I was currently covering half her accommodation costs $600. I don't think I was an asshole asking them to cover her share of the accommodation. I hadn't even met her yet, but they thought I should cover her costs because it was already paid for. Update: I called the accommodation and discussed options, then called my friend. I explained to him that we'd made the agreement to split everything equally when there were only 2 of us going, but I no longer felt that agreement was fair. I suggested the third option, splitting the cost of the communal areas 3 ways but setting cost per bedroom, and also stated that any food, activities, etc. wouldn't be split anymore, and we'd each be responsible for our own and they could decide as a couple how they were paying for themselves. It didn't go down well at all. He didn't see why he should be out of pocket because I decided to go against our agreement that I'm paying 50% of everything. I stuck to it and said that I'd be willing to negotiate the accommodation costs, but there was no way I was going to pay half for his GF's activities or her dinners and drinks, and it was ridiculous for him to think I should be paying half of his GF's costs, especially since she's a complete stranger and he'd already asked me to change all of our previous plans to suit her. He called me a B-word and told me I was acting crazy. I stopped him and said that from that, I don't think this holiday going to work, and I had spoken to the accommodation and I was going to cancel as of today. I told him if he still wanted to go, then the accommodation would hold open the booking for him for 72 hours, and if he confirmed with them I'd instructed them to hold on to $1,800 as what he'd contributed to the booking and refund me the rest, and his girlfriend and him would have to pay the hotel to finalize. If they didn't confirm, I'd get the refund for the whole amount and then forward him his share. He went quiet and then told me that since I was changing the rules at the last minute I should leave the entire accommodation payment because it wasn't his fault that I no longer wanted to go, leaving them in the lurch, and I would be ruining his holiday with his girlfriend. I told him I was canceling and I would definitely not be paying for any accommodation I wouldn't be using. I might have been a little petty when I told him he'd still be paying for his girlfriend's costs. It'll just be a little bit more than he was expecting because I was no longer going to subsidize them. I canceled my flights and the accommodation and emailed him all the details.
Am I the asshole for saying that my ex-husband was just like his father because he canceled on our daughter yet again? I'm making this fairly quick. I feel like I went a tad bit far with my comment, so half and half on if I'm the AH at the moment. So me, 36F, and my ex-husband, 38M, were together for 6 years, married for 2 before he left me. At the time our daughter was a year old. She's now 5. There were no warning signs. I left go do a grocery shop, came home to him and his clothes/things gone, left a note saying he was in love with a new woman and wanted a divorce. Just like that. I got absolute no closure from that. Any calls or messages were dodged, even when they were about our daughter, literally nothing. During our divorce, he tried to fight for full custody despite at this point not having seen her for 6 months, which was denied because he was in the military and at times constantly moving. I got full custody, got supervision with holidays if he's not deployed. Shortly after our divorce, he married his now wife and they settled down in the city we live in. He's still in the military, but now he's on a specific base. I asked if he wanted to revise the custody since he was no longer traveling. He said no need and he wants to take things slow. Since our divorce, he has maybe seen her 11 times. Over 4 years. And mine literally lives in the same city. Travel isn't a problem. My daughter isn't there for this, just to process the absence/broken promises from her father. Typical I'll pick you up this weekend, only to bail last second. Anyway, on to the issue. I got a call from him Friday night. He was supposed to pick our daughter up at 8 a.m. Saturday. I got a call at 1 a.m. because I was up working, and he basically says that he can't take our daughter this weekend. After some back and forth, he says it's because his wife is upset with him spending time with her, and that's she gets jealous. Yes, jealous of a 5-year-old. Absolute piss steak. I've been fairly cooperative this entire time, but Jesus, I was just so upset, like a buildup of emotions. I just started yelling at him, calling him a sack of shit and a disgrace. I mentioned our daughter being in therapy, how upset she was seeing some of the other kids with dad. In preschool, there was this dad day where the kids brought their dads and do activities with them. They had a mom day the previous week, and he promised to show but pulled out last minute. I had to give her a sick day because she was so upset. So I really started going in on him. He gets angry and starts yelling and cussing back. Eventually, he got quiet, and I ended ended up saying, you know what's really funny? Our entire relationship made a big show about how much you hated your dad, how horrible he was to your mom and siblings, how your biggest fear was becoming like him. But honesty, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree because you are just like him. This was said in anger. He isn't exactly like his father, but there's were similarities, which was why I said it. His father cheated on his mother, abused them, and eventually left and abandoned them for another woman. Take out the abuse part, in my opinion they're the same. He didn't say anything for a couple of seconds, said Jesus Christ, and then he just ended the call. I haven't had contact him since then. I absolutely did not feel bad at the time. I felt like my words were justified, but the longer it waits, the more I feel like I went far. I ended up telling my parents what I said, get some feedback, and they said it was cruel and unnecessary. So, am I the asshole?
My 33N wife, 33F, refuses to move for a job offer, unsure of where to go from here. I am a psych nurse practitioner with 3 years experience, and my wife is a nurse. We live in Ohio and make around $200K a year together, $135K and her around $65K. We have 2 kids, 3 and 10 months. I recently got a once-in-a-lifetime job opportunity out in Oregon. An old coworker of mine got out there and reached out to me with the offer. The pay is $115/hour, $240K/year, up to $40K in bonuses per year, $20K sign-on bonus, $10K relocation bonus, $401K in pension, 6 weeks PTO, no weekends or holidays, and $25K a year towards any student loans I currently have, which is $60K. Nurses out there also make really good money, have better ratios and work conditions, pensions, free healthcare, etc. My wife's income would also more than double. Our household income would more than double, and even with cost of living differences, we would come out significantly ahead of where we are now. The issue is my wife absolutely refuses to move. She said we don't absolutely need the money. Her home is here along with all our friends and family. She doesn't want to move across the country and start over. She wants our kids close to family, and her grandparents may have 10 years left, and she wants to be close to them and see them often. She sees them almost daily. While I do understand where she's coming from, moving will allow us to retire decades earlier, set up our children's future. We will have more time with the kids. We can take more vacations and make memories, and can fly out frequently to see family. She still refused and said she's not moving at all. I suggested moving out there for a couple of years, and she shot that down. I suggested I could fly out there and work, then come home on my days off, but she pointed out that logistically that's not feasible long term. To be honest, she's right. I also don't want to leave my kids for that long. I just don't know what to do. I feel like resentment will fester in the future if I don't take the job of and being honest with myself. I'm looking for insight and outside perspectives. Also wanted to add, I asked and remote is not an option. It is on-site only.
I, 49F, overheard a conversation between my husband, 47M, and his sister, 43F, about how the reason why my daughter, 24F, is so messed up is because I was a bad parent. I don't even know how to proceed after hearing that. My first husband died when my daughter was only 1 year old. I was left to raise her all alone. Although my brother effectively stood in as her father, she had a relatively normal childhood. I was lucky that I did not have to work and that my family stepped in so much to help me raise her. Around her teen years, she started exhibiting some worrying behavior, lots of aggression, hostility, neuroticism, etc. She was very productive and did amazing in school and never got involved in drugs or anything, but her personality changed to become quite cruel and intimidating. I honestly have no idea how it happened or why this change happened with her. She refused any form of counseling or mental health treatment, convinced there was nothing wrong with her. I hate to describe it this way, but the way she treated me and my brother was abusive. She went out of her way to make me feel bad about my weight, my looks, my lack of education, my clumsiness, etc. on a near daily basis. She would do things to embarrass me in public and clearly take pleasure out of seeing me upset or ashamed. She wasn't just like this to me, she also effectively lost all of her friendships, all of her relations with other family, over her behavior. And it wasn't just teasing. If you frustrated her, she would become terrifyingly angry and even physical and destructive. It was the most harrowing years of my life to see my own daughter turn into this cruel, horrible person. The worst part was that she would go back and forth between being kind and sweet to me and acting like she was some amazing person, and then switch into being cruel. I just bit my tongue. I literally was too scared to talk back to her. There was a time where I tried to rein it in, but eventually I just couldn't deal with it anymore. She left home at 18 and rarely visits. She lives 500 miles away in New Jersey, working towards a career in finance. When I do see her, she acts fine and friendly, but there are moments where I can see her cruel side is still very much there. I remember when she visited for a whole weekend and was totally fine, and then at the end she threw a huge fit at me over dinner being made too late in the night and started screaming at me, calling me dumb, pathetic, ugly, breaking her plate on the ground, and then laughed at me when I started to cry. Very classic behavior. It was almost like she had planned to act nice all weekend just to trick me. Anyways, you get the gist. It has been a constant source of pain for me. I met my husband 5 years ago and married him 3 years ago. My daughter has been nothing but sweet to him when they have met, and so it can be difficult for him to absorb why we are a bit distant. But other family members on my side have assured him what I say is true, so it's not as if he doesn't believe me about her problems. My husband had his family over for dinner. We had a fun time, and I went to bed. I could still hear my husband in the living room drunk chatting with his sister, who is basically his best friend. Our house has very thin walls. I heard them discuss my daughter, and I was just astounded. She brought up how kids don't just randomly end up that way, and that there has to have been something to make her that way. And he said how I tell him I was this good parent, but he doesn't really think that is true, because if that were true, she wouldn't have ended up that way. He said he isn't sure if I abused her or beat her or something like that. This is paraphrasing heavily. Their conversation went on for easily 20 to 30 minutes. It sounded like they had talked about this before. My husband said that even if I was a horrible parent, it means nothing to him because we aren't having kids. He also mentioned how no mother ever admits they are bad parents and that he doesn't think I would ever admit to being one. But he did say that it's fucked up to mess someone up for life like that and then deny it. I was just astounded. Just to be clear, I do think something probably triggered her to end up like that, but I spent years trying to get her to open up, go to therapy, anything, and there was nothing. I made her talk to a counselor and she didn't take it seriously at all. I have talked with my husband about those years extensively. I have even told him exactly what his sister said, that I think it came from something, I don't know what. I know my grandmother was a very cruel woman, and maybe it was just a genetic thing passed down, but I can't say. I am just so deeply hurt by his comments that he doesn't believe me. I am his wife. We are completely honest with each other. Well, I thought we were. And yet at the same time, I don't blame him. He is completely correct that horrible mothers don't ever admit they are horrible mothers. I know I've met plenty, and I also do not blame him for ever bringing up these suspicions. Could you imagine telling your wife might have been a horrible abusive mother, basically implying I am lying? Even if he does think that I was, I simply cannot blame him for not ever bringing this up to me. But it doesn't mean I am not deeply, deeply hurt by the fact that he thinks this about me. It's been one day and I haven't brought it up. I just don't know how. For one, I eavesdrop. That is not okay. But two, it's just UNCOMFORTABL to talk about. What do I do? How do I bring this up to him? What do I even say? TLDR, I overheard my husband and his sister talk about how the reason why my daughter is so messed up is because I abused her. I did not, and I told him that.